That's what the disciples asked at the beginning at his ascension. Will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? Well, it wasn't time yet. But when he comes again, it will be time. It will be time to fulfill that last 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week and cause the covenant that he cut in his blood to prevail, not only for us spiritually, but also for the nation of Israel, so that Jerusalem is the capital of the whole earth. It becomes a praise in all of the earth. If you remember Isaiah, he said that God has set watchmen on the walls of that city who will not hold their peace day or night until God establishes that city to be a praise in all the earth. That's what is in our future. That's what's coming. And that's the covenant that he came to cut, to reveal, to preach, to demonstrate with his power, his anointing, by healing the sick, raising the dead, casting out devils, and so forth. And he said, I'll do that with my church as my body for 2 days, a today and a tomorrow. And then on the third day, after 2,000 years of that, of gospel preaching, you could say after 2 days of turning away from the house of Israel to minister to the Samaritans. Remember that? The Samaritan revival, the woman at the well, she went back and told everybody, you got to hear this man. And so they begged him, stay with us and preach. And he did. How long did he stay? He stayed there 2 days. Why 2 days? It was prophetic shadow. It was a demonstration of what was to come, of how for 2 days, or 2,000 years, 2 great days, he would preach this gospel. It would include and go predominantly to the Gentiles, the Samaritans, a mixed group. But then afterwards, he would return to minister, to rescue, to heal, to save the house of Israel. That's what the 70th week really shows us. A pause in the middle of the 70th week, leaving 3.5 years hanging out there in our future. That does have to do with an antichrist and a beast and a false prophet and the mark of the beast and the whole 9 yards. But during this pause, a mystery has happened. A mystery in which God has made a new man, one new man, to reign over his kingdom, to put every enemy under his feet, to bring about the consummation of the Genesis mandate. Fill the earth, but put everything, subdue it. Bring this squatter, devil, put them down, and eradicate this rebellion, this conspiracy of angels. So that's what happens. Jesus as the head and the church as his body, the fullness of him, during this mystery time, is this new man that God raises up to become and form the government of heaven. Not just for this 1,000 years, but forever. But during this 1,000 years, our purpose is to bring about the Genesis mandate, to put every enemy underfoot. Begin with the Gentile kingdoms, smash their cities, bring them all down. That's what happens in the 7th trumpet and the 7th bowl. All the cities of the nations fall and crumble. And restore the kingdom to Israel, make them the head, not the tail, because that's what he promised Abraham he would do. We're, the church, we're reigning from up above in the third heaven at God's right hand as promised. And we have delegated the kingdom under the heavens. This is Daniel chapter 7. Read it carefully. We delegate the kingdom under the heavens to the nation of Israel, the physical descendants. We're reigning in the hierarchy of the heavens, just as right now the God of this world is reigning, principalities, spirits, wickedness, where? In the heavenly places. So to make a long story short, that key is a lot involved in it, even more because it also gives us the first definition of a term that has also bewildered the church. And so in Daniel 9 is also the statement that upon the temple shall be the abomination of desolation. Upon what temple? Well, the one they were going back to rebuild. That's the one that was in existence in Jesus' time, when he said, not one stone of this beautiful temple is going to be left standing. Your house, behold, it's desolate. That's an abomination. It's because of their abominations, and it's an abomination of desolation. It's been desolate for now. To this day, the temple is not there yet. It's soon to be. But for nearly 2,000 years of desolation on the Temple Mount. And so why is that important? Because this period of great tribulation that was associated with the first century of the church and the desolation of the Jewish temple, this great tribulation has spanned the entire church age. And so this fits very easily and nicely in the puzzle now as you see the keys start putting the pieces together for us. Key number 1, the great week. He comes at the end of the 6th day to reign in the 7th. That 6th day ends this present age and begins the 7th day, or the age to come. Okay? Now Daniel's 70th week tells us that this period of great tribulation has spanned the entire church age, these 2,000 years. When it comes to an immediate end, what happens? Well, Jesus made it clear. Joel made it clear. It was the first thing that the church preached in the book of Acts on the day of Pentecost. Jesus said it like this: immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will turn blood red. The sun, moon, and stars will be diminished to announce the advent, the coming of what? The day of the Lord. That's the 7th day. See how this all fits together? In the book of Acts, as quoted by Peter when quoting Joel, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of that awesome and terrible day of the Lord. So put the two together. Jesus said immediately after the tribulation, this celestial sign of the sun, moon, and stars will happen and announce the coming of the day of the Lord, which means the coming of the Lord, because he comes when that day begins. Joel said it like this: the sun, moon, and stars will be darkened before the coming of that day. So everyone's in agreement. All of the pieces fit. When you put them together, you see one unified picture. Tribulation ends immediately, cut short by the sun darkened, the moon darkened, the stars, and then announcing the advent or the start of the day of the Lord, or the 7th day. So this is how these keys fit together. I've only been through really 2 of the keys, and see how much of the puzzle it puts together for us? That's amazing. When you look at Jesus' Olivet teaching, Olivet discourse as we call it, just before the cross, when they asked him, when are you coming back? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Well, I got that right, because he comes at the end of the age. But the Antichrist has still 3.5 years left, and during that 3.5 years is when he does his most prophetic damage, the things that we don't want to be here for. Well, we're promised, and it shows, the picture, when put together correctly, shows that we're not. It's all of what you wanted with a pre-tribulation rapture, where you were not here for certain things that other people who didn't believe would be, well, you've got it. When you put the puzzle together correctly, that's what you have. We're taken from the earth before these things that everyone else doesn't want to experience. We escape the snare of that day, the hour of trial, the wrath of God in that day. Fits beautifully. And it is during that 3.5 years, of course, that our role with Christ is to speak and administer that wrath that brings down the Gentiles, that smashes the image on its feet. So when you look at the Olivet Discourse, guess who's not there? Guess who's not mentioned? The Antichrist, the false prophet, the beast, the mark of the beast, the image of the beast, all of the things that you read about in the book of Revelation during this 3.5 year time of God's wrath, because his teaching there was all about the rapture. It wasn't about the coming of the man of sin. It was about the coming of the Son of Man. His coming, how Jesus would come, send forth his angels, gather together his elect, that's the church, that our days would be cut short, like Enoch's were. His days on the earth were cut short. Why? Because he was taken. And that's what Jesus was telling us. In the rapture, I'm going to come. The angels are going to gather. Your days on the earth will be cut short. Jesus was just taking his disciples to the events that would bring them up to the end of the age, no further. The rest would be for the book of Revelation. They didn't need to know any more than that because he wanted to unveil to them in his teaching, not only give them a glimpse of when he was coming. It would be like the days of Noah. Noah knew when the flood was coming. Unlike the unknown day and hour of the passing away of heaven and earth, where no one can know that in advance. Nobody can see into eternity future, but you can know, like Noah. So just as Noah knew when the flood was coming, the end, his salvation, we can also know when the Lord is coming, because of it will be like the days of Noah. So there was a clue there. Not like the unknown day and hour, but like the days of Noah. Just you need to think about days, and you need to get hold of what I've been teaching you about the day code, how I would come at the seventh day, and it would be the third day, and it would be the last day, and it's the day of the Lord, and so forth. So he got them thinking in the correct terms that it's going to be a while before he comes back. It's going to be time enough for scoffers to scoff and say, where is the promise of his coming anyways? You've been saying that for centuries now. And so Peter made it clear. He knew that in advance. He said, they will come. You better know that, because the Lord is not slack concerning his promise. He's on time. He's not dragging his feet. You got to think in terms of 1,000-year days. That's the one thing you have to investigate and consider. Otherwise, you'll think like the scoffers are thinking. So the clue, the understanding that I want you to get, that Jesus wanted us to get, that we couldn't grasp at the time we sat with him on the Mount of Olives, was that he was coming in the last day, as he said, but there was a clue there that we just didn't grasp, that he was referring to 1,000-year days. So he was building on the concept, prophetically speaking, of the great week in Genesis, and that there would be 6 days of work and a 7th day to bring about rest to the earth by putting every enemy underfoot. That he would then come at the end of the 6th great day to raise us up as promised, those of us who believe in him, at the last day. So if you didn't understand the day terms and the day code of God, then that won't mean much to you. You won't know really what day, the last 24-hour day, or what is he talking about. He's coming. So eventually the church started teaching, well, he's coming at any time, any day. We don't know the day. He doesn't even know the day. It could be any day. So that's how goofed up it got. And so that was the key, that during his Olivet teaching, he wanted to steer them towards and into a revelation of God's day code. He also wanted them to know they could know that right now, presently, you don't know. You have not yet known the day and hour of my coming. It was like the foot washing. Peter's like, what are you doing, Lord? Washing my feet. Why are you washing my feet? I should be washing your feet. And he used two Greek words in his reply in response to Peter. He said, Peter, you do not oida, you do not yet know what I'm doing, but you will gnosko, or learn, or come to know in the future. So that's the play of those two words, how they interact. Oida, you don't, in a negative sense, you have not yet perceived, you have not yet understood. That doesn't mean you can't. It just means that you won't unless you investigate, unless you study, unless you watch, unless you pursue the knowledge. So those in the world who don't will never know. They'll be surprised when I come. But you can be like Noah, and you can know like Noah. Noah knew that the flood was coming. He also had a good time response to it, or he knew he needed to build an ark. He knew God had given mankind another 120 years. And then as it got really close, God visited him again and said, now you've got 7 days, okay? So get those animals and all of the things into the ark to be saved. You've got 7 days. So God kept him abreast of the timetable, and then told us, as they were asking him on the Mount of Olives, it'll be like Noah, so you can be like Noah. Well, what was Noah like? Was he surprised? Was he shocked by the coming of the flood? No, he knew that it was coming. He knew that he and his family would use the ark, so he knew it would come in his lifetime, in his generation. He wasn't building the ark for some, future playground and coming attraction. He knew that he and his sons and daughters and his wife would sail on the ark, the 8 of them. So, and then God approached him one more time, and he knew the exact day and hour. If you want to get nitty gritty about it, he knew 7 more days. Well, it will be like the days of Noah when I come. You can be like Noah. So he was steering them towards the revelation of God's great week of 1,000-year days, the day terms. And by telling them, I'm going to be gone for a long time. This is not going to be, it's going to be a while. It's going to be 2 days, 2,000 years. You got to think like that. And you can know. So not only can you know if you know the Chronos, the chronological passing of this great week, but you can also know the signs, the Kairos signs also. And if you study them, if you learn the parable of the fig tree, which teaches you to pay attention to the signs of the nations and so forth, then you can know that too. And the two together, you can know when my coming is going to happen, relatively speaking, within a window of years relative to his birth. When was he 30 years old? Well, we have a window of years of about 4 years maybe that we don't know for exact sureness. Well, it'll be 2,000 years from then. Okay, that puts us in this decade. That puts us in that this is going to be over before this decade is over. Now we know. Now we have a strong, sure word. It's not going to be at the beginning of this decade. I know a lot of people were talking about him coming then. They've been setting dates ever since, and well before that, all these premature dates. They were obviously wrong if anyone knew the Chronos, the day code, the great week, because you know that he had to be 2,000 years of ministry between him and the church as the head, the church as his body, of casting out devils, of performing cures, of messianic anointing and preaching of the gospel. There has to be 2,000 years of that before he can come. He's coming at the end of the 6th day. And so that and the signs, now we can know that when it's at the door. Hey, thanks for watching these videos. They were originally recorded as one lengthy session, so I decided to break them up into parts and then add to them as we go. So this is part 2, and I encourage you to go ahead and move on to part 3 when it's available, and I believe that this will be a blessing to you.